Hi everyone. Before we get into this audiobook, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button and drop a like. It helps me out a lot as well as contributes a lot to the channel. Now, let's get into the story. I hope you enjoy. My name is Anya Volkov, a name whispered with dread or spat out with venom. Among my kind, it's a brand. A solemn vow, a chilling premonition. I was a shadow wolf. From infancy, my life was sculpted into a keen edge. I wasn't forged into a mere soldier or a sentinel, but a surgical instrument, precise, lethal. Each day was a grueling blend of physical torment, honed blade work, and relentless indoctrination. Our existence was subterranean, a warren of concealed bunkers and derelict tunnels that coiled beneath the sprawling northern forests. Spartan lives dedicated to a singular purpose, the termination of all alpha bloodlines. The memory of that ever-present cold lingers. Not just the Arctic winds sawing through the barren trees around our compound, but a cold that sank deep into my marrow. The icy conviction that tenderness, compassion, were flaws that had to be cauterized. Kira Petrova, our leader, our surrogate mother, made certain of it. Flashback: the Siberian gale clawed at the training yard, each gust carrying a needle spray of sleet. I was 10, barely tall enough to keep a grip on the practice sword, but Kira remained unmoved. A statue hewn from ice and resolve. Her eyes held the glint of sharpened steel. Facing me stood Boris, a 15-year-old brute, already hinting at his future bulk. Anya. Kira's voice sliced through the tempest. Your objective is straightforward. Incapacitate Boris. He embodies an alpha. Grant him no quarter. Boris grinned, a cruel light in his gaze. He relished tormenting me, using his superior size as leverage. This will be child's play, he rumbled, circling like a predator testing its prey. My stomach knotted with fear. I knew the expectations, knew the consequences of failure. He lunged. I evaded, the training blade whistling past my ear. Years of rigorous training took over. The frightened child vanished. I became a mechanism, reacting, anticipating. A feint to the left, then to the right, disrupting his balance. He swung again, unwieldy, and a sliver of opportunity presented itself. I dropped low, slamming my shoulder into his legs, scything his feet from under him. He crashed down, momentarily dazed. I was on him instantly, the blunt edge of the training blade pressed against his throat. A hesitation. His eyes, wide with shock and a trace of pain, locked with mine. For a fleeting instant, I saw not an alpha, not an adversary, but simply a boy, afraid, vulnerable. Kira's voice shattered the fragile moment. Finish it, Anya, she bellowed, her eyes like burning coals. Show no weakness. Her words landed like a physical blow. I pressed the blade harder, drawing a thin crimson line on Boris's skin. He whimpered. And then I froze. Releasing him, I stumbled back, the training blade slipping from my unresponsive fingers. Kira seized me, her grip like a vise. She hauled me upright, her face a hair's breadth from mine. What was that? She hissed, her breath frigid against my skin. You had him. You balked. Why? Speechless, I was choked by shame and terror. Answer me, she screamed, shaking me violently. I don't know, I stammered, tears stinging my eyes. She struck me. The force sent me sprawling onto the frozen ground. Weakness is a cancer, Anya, she said, her voice now a menacing whisper, and it will not be tolerated. You will learn to kill without hesitation, without pity, or you will be of no value. End flashback. That brutal lesson was reinforced ceaselessly. Alphas were the incarnation of evil, corrupt, dissolute, and ruthless. They seized power and resources, leaving the world mired in suffering, a plague that demanded eradication. Kira excelled at manipulation. Her speeches were incandescent, fervent, imbued with tales of alpha depravities, of the miseries they inflicted upon the helpless. She recounted her own history, of the alpha pack that had butchered her family, leaving her a desolate orphan. Her agony was palpable, her hatred a virulent contagion that infected us all. They are wolves draped in sheep's wool, she would declare, her voice resonating with conviction. They smile and offer a hand, but in their hearts, they are plotting how best to exploit you, to control you, to dismantle you. Trust no alpha. Show them no mercy, for they will grant you none. Her words were our creed. We enshrined them, echoed them, assimilated them until they became inseparable from ourselves. We were the shadow wolves, the righteous retribution, the harbingers of justice. For years I embraced it. I embraced it. I trained. I fought. I killed. Questions. The nagging unease that something was fundamentally wrong. I told myself Kira was right, that the alphas were demonic, that our actions were justified. Then came my assignment. Rhys. Alpha Rhys. My objective: infiltrate his pack, earn his confidence, ensnare him, and then terminate him. A mission years in the making. I was the perfect instrument, honed and primed. I entered his territory disguised as a solitary wolf, seeking sanctuary. I played the role of the vulnerable, wounded creature, craving acceptance. It required little acting. Deception was my forte. I had been schooled by the best. He discovered me on the fringes of his domain, huddled beneath a tree, savaged by the elements, shivering, drenched to the bone. He could have dismissed me. He could have left me to perish. But he didn't. He offered me refuge, sustenance, warmth. He regarded me with kindness, with genuine concern. He treated me with, quote, respect, like a person. And then he looked into my eyes. That was the pivot. The instant our gazes met, a tidal wave unleashed. Torrent of emotions, of sensations, washed over me, obliterating everything I thought I knew. A connection so absolute, so primal, that it shattered years of conditioning, the fortress of ice I had constructed around my heart, the bond. The stories were true, the alpha bond, real, unquestionable. My training shattered, my mission dissolved, my world inverted. Now I am fractured. Duty versus yearning, hatred versus affection. The shadow wolf versus the woman I fear I might become. I was Za, bred to kill alphas. But I'm falling for one, and I am lost. The alphas mark the summons arrived as a cold whisper on Anya's neck, an instinctive prickle signaling Kira's ever-watchful gaze. She discovered the alpha in the war room, the astringent odor of disinfectant battling the lingering coppery ghost of aged blood, a constant presence within those walls. A tapestry of maps depicting Northwood Pack's domain sprawled across the surfaces, each peak and stream meticulously catalogued, testament to years nurturing a slow-burning animosity. Kira remained fixed on the maps. Come closer. The command scratched like gravel. Anya advanced, boots muffled on the aged planks. A tangible tension thrummed in the confined space. Alpha Rhys, Kira stated finally, her inflection devoid of warmth. A thick finger stabbed at a photograph secured to the central map. A stolen snapshot. Rhys, caught mid-laugh, head tilted back, sunlight catching the raven gleam of his hair. Even captured on film, his potent charisma reached her, the very force she was tasked to extinguish. Anya's throat tightened. Yes, Kira. He has grown lax, puffed up with pride. He believes his pack is untouchable, his lineage invulnerable. Undermine that belief. Turning. Kira's stare was as sharp as honed flint. You are aware of what's required. Anya offered a curt nod, the weight of her rigorous training settling upon her. Infiltrate. Entice. Eradicate. The words resonated, a deeply ingrained directive. There is no room for error, Anya. No faltering. This is not a drill, it is a declaration of war. Kira's grip on Anya's arm tightened, nails biting. You bear the ba. Mark of the Shadow Wolf. Embody it. Anya wrenched free, the sting a stark reminder of her resolve. Understood. Good. Kira released her, gaze sharpening. The Northwood pack hosts a masquerade in the coming week, a yearly spectacle of alpha privilege and ostentation. It will serve as your opening. A bull? The question escaped her lips before she could stop it. Kira's lips twisted in a mirthless smile. They wallow in excess. Turn that against them. You will present yourself as Lady Anya Volkov, a dignitary from distant territories. The invitation has been arranged, the persona flawlessly crafted. And the tools? Anya queried, maintaining a neutral tone. Kira inclined her head toward a stout chest nestled in the corner. All that you require resides within. Choose with discernment. Reiterate your purpose. Anya approached the chest, inhaling the sharp scent of burnished steel and crushed herbs. Within, resting upon opulent fabrics, lay an arsenal, each piece designed for a specific end. A slim dagger, the blade serrated and coated in wolfsbane. A garrote, finer than spun gossamer, yet capable of cleaving bone. A phial containing a potent toxin distilled from alpine blooms. She lifted the dagger, testing its balance. It felt familiar, an extension of herself, but a discordant note sounded within her. The weight, once comforting, now felt oppressive. She returned it to its place. Report before your departure. Kira's voice sliced through her thoughts. And Anya, do not disappoint me. The following hours dissolved into frantic motion. Anya assembled her disguise, transmuting herself from predator into prey. A gown of shimmering viridian flowed over her skin, cool and deceptively delicate. Her sable hair was sculpted into an intricate coiffure, held in place by jeweled pins. She studied her reflection, a stranger staring back. This was not Anya Volkov, the Shadow Wolf. This was someone else entirely. She carefully selected her implements, a small, discreet blade and a vial of paralyzing concoction meant to render her victim compliant. Concealed within her dress, the cold steel served as a constant, chilling reminder. Presenting herself before Kira for a final assessment, Anya felt strangely distant from herself. Kira scrutinized her, expression inscrutable. You appear convincing, she stated, voice still flat. But appearances are malleable. Remember who you are, Anya. Remember that which you represent. I will not, Anya replied, her voice even. Kira gave a curt nod, eyes narrowing. Then leave, and may the shadows shroud your endeavors. The journey into Northwood Pack territory unfolded with a slow, deliberate pace. Anya traveled unaccompanied, her sole companion the persistent cadence of her own reflections. The landscape underwent a gradual alteration as she approached the Pack's sphere, the barren, craggy terrain yielding to verdant woodland and undulating hills. She could sense the Pack's essence emanating from the ground, a palpable force that buzzed in the atmosphere. As she neared the border, a distinct odor permeated the air, the rich, musky signature of Alpha Rhys Pack. It was an intoxicating scent, both alluring and subtly menacing. Halting the carriage, she adjusted her garments and composed herself. The border patrol awaited, two towering figures with eyes that burned with suspicion. They approached the carriage with guarded steps, nostrils flared, sampling the air. "State your purpose," one of them rumbled, his tone rough and aggressive. Anya forced serenity, her heart hammering. "I am Lady Anya Volkov, a welcomed guest of Alpha Rhys. I possess an invitation to the masquerade." The werewolf regarded her with skepticism, his gaze lingering on her face. He accepted the proffered invitation, scrutinizing it intently. "Very well," he conceded finally, returning the card. "Proceed." Anya urged the horses forward, her grip tightening on the reins. As she crossed into Northwood Pack territory, a tremor danced along her spine. She was infiltrating enemy ground, walking into the beast's lair. But turning back was not an option. She had sworn to complete her charge, and she would not allow failure, even as a small part of her desired nothing more. Into the fold, each breath drawn astride the rented mare intensified the pine's fragrance, a bracing, almost astringent scent that cleansed Anya's senses of Kira's syrupy perfume and the familiar ferrous undertone of blood that seemed permanently woven into her garments. She'd reached Northwood land. Reining in at the tree line, Anya gazed out at a field steeped in the burnished glow of late afternoon. A rickety fence served as a symbolic boundary, a mere suggestion of peace rather than a true impediment. Two wolves, their pelts the color of damp earth, stood sentinel, amber eyes scrutinizing her arrival. Dismounting, she smoothed the plush folds of her cloak. "I seek asylum," she announced, her voice firm and steady, the shadow wolf's gravelly edge absent. "I am Lady Anya Volkov, requesting an audience with Alpha Rhys." A silent exchange flickered between the guards. The larger, more powerfully built of the two advanced. "State your purpose, Lady Volkov," his voice rumbled, edged with suspicion. "My party was ambushed by rogues," Anya declared, forcing a quiver into her tone. "I barely escaped with my life. I have heard of Alpha Rhys's renowned generosity, his willingness to aid those in need." A convenient distortion of the truth. The attack had indeed occurred, but it was meticulously orchestrated, a means of discarding her shadow wolf persona and cementing her constructed identity. The wolf studied her, gaze unwavering. "Wait here." He vanished into the undergrowth, leaving Anya with his watchful companion. Unspoken tension hung heavy in the air. Anya maintained a relaxed posture, her expression an open book of vulnerability, a carefully honed deception. Yet, beneath the surface, her senses were hyper-attuned, mapping the terrain and cataloging the guards' every shift. An eternity seemed to pass before the first wolf emerged, ushering forth another figure. Taller, broader, a mane of copper fire crowning his head, Alpha Rhys materialized from the forest's depths. His eyes, a startling verdant hue, immediately seized hers. A surge, unexpected and unsettling, coursed through her veins. It was more than the palpable authority emanating from him. It was something deeper, resonating within her, striking a chord she hadn't known existed. He moved with live power, halting a few feet from her. "Lady Volkov," he greeted, his voice a resonant timbre that sent shivers tracing her spine. "I am Rhys Thorn, Alpha of the Northwood Pack. I understand you seek haven with us." Anya inclined her head, struggling to regain her poise. "Alpha Rhys, I am grateful for your willingness to receive me." She met his intense gaze, attempting to view him through Kira's lens. A soft, vulnerable leader, ripe for exploitation. Instead, she saw strength, empathy, and a profound depth that threatened to dismantle her meticulously crafted illusion. "Tell me what transpired," Rhys invited, his voice soothing, encouraging. Anya relayed her fabricated ordeal, embellishing the brutality of the assault and the terror she had endured. She scrutinized Rhys's reaction, registering the flash of ire in his gaze, the clenching of his jaw. He was a protector, a sentinel. Kira's assessment seemed flawed. When she concluded, Rhys remained silent for a moment, his gaze distant. "You are welcome amongst us, Lady Volkov," he finally stated. "We will provide you with sanctuary and protection for as long as you require." Anya swallowed, the words snagging in her throat. "Thank you, Alpha Rhys. Your kindness overwhelms me." He offered a subtle smile, a genuine, unguarded expression that caused her heart to constrict. "It is our way. We safeguard our own and extend that care to those in need." He gestured to one of the guards. "Escort Lady Volkov to the guest quarters. See to her needs." As the guard guided her away, Anya stole a glance back at Rhys. He was still watching her, his jade eyes conveying an unreadable depth. She felt a magnetic pull, an invisible tether drawing her toward him, a force that threatened to unravel her resolve. This venture would be far more complex than Kira had foreseen. The guest quarters exceeded expectations. A spacious chamber boasting a grand fireplace, an inviting bed buried beneath layers of furs, and a window overlooking a serene woodland clearing. A stark contrast to the austere conditions of the Shadow Wolf training grounds. Dismissing the guard, Anya secured the door, leaning against it, her breath ragged. She had to regain control. She was Anya Volkov, Shadow Wolf assassin. She had a mission to fulfill. But Rhys's face, the warmth in his expression, persisted, blurring the sharp edges of her purpose. Later that evening, a young woman with bright, inquisitive eyes delivered a simple meal of stew and bread. "Alpha Rhys asked me to check on you, Lady Volkov," she explained, placing the tray on a small table. "Is there anything else you need?" "Just some information," Anya replied, forcing a smile. "Tell me about Alpha Rhys. What sort of leader is he?" The woman's face radiated affection. "He's the best. He cares deeply for everyone in the pack. He's fair, kind, and strong. He always prioritizes us." A shadow flickered across her features. "Some of the other packs, they misunderstand him. They think he's too lenient, but we know the truth. He's just a good." A pang of guilt resonated within Anya, a sharp stab of conscience. Her purpose here was to destroy this man, to shatter his pack. Yet everyone she encountered seemed to hold him in genuine affection and esteem. "He's also lonely," the woman added, almost as an afterthought. "He lost his mate several years ago. He hasn't truly been himself since." Anya's heart ached. She understood loss, the consuming nature of grief. but she had been trained to suppress her emotions, to transmute her pain into vengeance. Rhys, it seemed, had chosen a different path. After the woman departed, Anya sat by the hearth, mesmerized by the dancing flames. The warmth caressed her skin, yet failed to thaw the icy grip of her uncertainty. She faced a choice that would determine not only her destiny, but the fate of the Northwood pack. The tenets of the Shadow Wolves, the ingrained animosity towards alphas, began to erode, undermined by the kindness of strangers, the allure of a welcoming fire, and the unsettling gaze of an alpha marked for death. Close in her eyes. The image of Rhys's face seared itself into her mind. The mission had become a battlefield within her very soul. Beneath the surface aroma of resin and loam permeated the air as Anya navigated the Northwood pack's territory. Dawn's first light kissed the horizon, gilding leaves still heavy with dew. She played the part of a wanderer seeking solace, a facade masking her true objective. Charting the pack's boundaries, seeking vulnerabilities, anything of use. Reconnaissance was key. Rhys's patterns, his inclinations, his soft spots. She began with the pack house, a sprawling edifice of timber and stone already humming with life. Laughter and the clatter of breakfast dishes spilled from the kitchen, a world apart from the stark quiet of the Shadow Wolf training grounds. A girl, barely 10, with hair like spun moonlight, skipped by, her gaze alight with childish curiosity. "Are you the new guest?" she chirped, her voice a sweet melody. Anya manufactured a smile, her face stiff and unfamiliar. "Yes, I am. Anya. I'm Ilara. Mom says you're so brave." Ilara paused, head cocked. "Are you truly a lone wolf?" The inquiry, sharper than intended, lingered. Necessity dictated it," Anya replied, carefully modulating her tone. "Circumstances left me no choice." Ilara seemed appeased, her attention already scattering. "Alpha Rhys is the bravest," she declared, puffing out her small chest. "He keeps everyone safe." With that, she vanished into the trees, brimming with youthful exuberance. A knot twisted in Anya's stomach as she watched her go. Shadow Wolf propaganda painted alphas as ruthless tyrants, driven by greed and thirst for dominion. Yet, everything she'd witnessed at Northwood defied that depiction. Pack members spoke of Rhys with genuine affection, bordering on reverence. Later, Anya found herself skirting the training grounds, a clearing echoing with the sounds of sparring. Rhys watched, his gaze sharp, offering words of guidance and correction. He possessed a fluid grace, his presence commanding yet devoid of pomp. She observed as he demonstrated a technique, his movements a controlled dance of power. The pack members watched him, spellbound, their faces reflecting respect and devotion. Anya focused, searching for any tell, any weakness. Instead, she saw a leader deeply invested in his community's welfare. He noticed a younger wolf grappling with a particular maneuver. Rather than scolding, Rhys patiently walked him through the steps, providing gentle adjustments and encouragement until the young wolf finally succeeded. The triumph blazing on the young wolf's face mirrored in Rhys's expression. The display was unnerving. It eroded the calloused shell Anya had painstakingly cultivated. It stirred memories of everything she had been taught to revile, everything she was sworn to obliterate. As the training session drew to a close, Rhys spotted Anya lingering at the edge of the clearing. He approached, his expression open and inviting. "Anya, isn't it?" he greeted, his voice a deep timbre. "I trust you're settling in." Anya tensed, her hand instinctively drifting toward the concealed dagger beneath her tunic. "I am," she replied, her voice carefully measured. "Thank you," Is there anything you require? Anything I can do to ease your transition? His eyes reflected genuine concern, a far cry from the cold, calculating stare she had anticipated. I'm fine, Anya stated, perhaps too readily. Rhys scrutinized her for a moment, his gaze penetrating but not unkind. You seem guarded, he observed. This paquet we operate as a family. You don't have to shoulder your burdens alone. Anya scoffed, a cynical sound escaping before she could suppress it. Family, she echoed, the word carrying a bitter taste. A luxury I cannot afford. Rhys's expression softened, becoming almost tender. Everyone deserves a family, Anya. You too. He stepped closer, his very presence exuding warmth and solace. Come, he invited, extending a hand. Let me introduce you around. Familiarize you with the pack. Perhaps you'll discover something here, something you've been missing. Anya hesitated, her mind a maelstrom of conflicting impulses. A part of her, the ingrained shadow wolf assassin, screamed at her to maintain distance, to exploit his weakness, to strike without warning. Yet another part, long suppressed, craved belonging, the very thing Rhys offered. She studied his outstretched hand, the unfeigned kindness in his eyes, and for a heart-stopping moment considered accepting it. But the weight of her mission, years of indoctrination, the blood oaths she had sworn, restrained her. I cannot, she stammered, retreating a step. I have obligations. Rhys didn't pursue, but his face betrayed a flicker of disappointment. Very well, he conceded, his tone still gentle. But remember, Anya, you're not an outsider here. We're here for you, whenever you're ready. He turned and walked away, leaving Anya alone in the clearing, the burden of her deception heavier than before. The sun arced higher, casting elongated shadows that danced around her like accusing phantoms. She had arrived at Northwood to undermine, to infiltrate, to assassinate. But the more she observed, the more she absorbed, the more she questioned everything she had held to be true. Rhys's kindness was a weapon, a subtle form of warfare gradually fracturing her resolve, leaving her vulnerable and conflicted. Beneath the veneer of her carefully constructed persona, a war raged. The shadow wolf assassin wrestled against the burgeoning empathy, the unnerving attraction, the frightening possibility that everything she thought she knew might be a lie. Moonlit confessions, the night carried the earthy breath of the forest as Anya gravitated toward its edge. A solitary moon, a gleaming disk in the dark expanse, painted the trees with elongated, spectral shadows. She hadn't planned this clandestine rendezvous, but the burden of her secrets, a persistent inner torment, had morphed into tangible discomfort. And there he stood, Rhys, merged with the sturdy frame of an oak, his form etched by lunar luminescence. He seemed lost in contemplation, a stark contrast to the image of the merciless alpha her shadow wolf mentors had ingrained in her mind. As she neared, he straightened, a tender smile blossoming on his face. Anya, I had a feeling I might find you here. Trouble sleeping? Something along those lines, she confessed, halting a few feet away. An invisible current surged between them, an attraction both frightening and alluring. He detached himself from the tree, diminishing the space that separated them. Care to unburden yourself and share what's plaguing your thoughts? His tone was gentle, imbued with authentic concern. A perilous weapon, this compassion. Anya faltered, her carefully constructed persona on the verge of collapsing. Just pondering things, my origins mostly. Rhys gave a curt nod, comprehension glinting in his eyes. The past can be a weighty anchor. I'm familiar with that sentiment. He gestured toward a nearby prostrate log. Mind if I join you? She shook her head, and a comfortable quiet descended, punctuated only by the whispering leaves stirred by the nocturnal breeze. Anya found herself observing him intently, registering the delicate lines fanning from his eyes when he smiled, the way the moonlight accentuated the robust contours of his jaw. He possessed a striking visage, no doubt, but it extended beyond mere appearance. It was the palpable warmth he projected, the genuine benevolence that seemed to permeate his very being. What was it like? He probed softly, shattering the tranquility. Where you came from? Anya's throat constricted, dryness invading her mouth. Difficult, inhospitable. She selected her words with caution, omitting the critical details, the years of rigorous training, the systematic indoctrination, the ingrained animosity. We lacked much. Every possession was fought for. Rhys's attention was keen, yet absent of any condemnation. I discern that. You possess an inherent strength, Anya, a certain resilience. She diverted her gaze, unsettled by his intense scrutiny. Simply survival instinct. He chuckled, a resonant, throaty sound that vibrated through her. Survival can cultivate extraordinary qualities. What of dreams? Did you harbor aspirations in those days? The query caught her unprepared. Dreams? The shadow wolves discouraged such frivolous pursuits. Dreams equated to vulnerabilities, distractions from the paramount mission. I am not certain, she stammered. I never truly considered it. Everyone dreams, Anya, Rhys insisted gently. Even if it's subconscious. What do you yearn for? What is your ultimate desire? The inquiry lingered in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. Anya's thoughts spiraled. She desired security. She wanted acceptance. She longed for belonging, all of which she had been conditioned to believe were unattainable. And then arose the other. Yearning. The one that instilled the most fear. The longing to be near him, to absorb the comforting aura of his presence, to understand what it would be like to be enveloped in his embrace. I don't know, she echoed, her voice barely audible. Rhys extended his hand, enveloping hers within it. His touch sparked a current, sending a wave of awareness throughout her. It's acceptable, he murmured softly. You need not know immediately, but pondering the query is paramount. Grant yourself permission to dream. She lowered her gaze to their joined hands, his substantial and weathered, hers delicate and scarred. The interaction evoked both solace and disquiet. She ought to withdraw, maintain her distance, recall her objectives, but she found herself unable to comply. What of you? She inquired, her voice quivering slightly. What are your aspirations, Alpha Rhys? He smiled, a hint of melancholy coloring his features. My aspiration is straightforward, to safeguard my pack, to fashion a secure haven for them, a place where they can flourish and experience joy, a sanctuary devoid of fear. His articulation resonated deeply within her. She had witnessed the manner in which he nurtured his pack, the way he prioritized their needs above his own. A stark departure from the frigid, merciless command of her own faction. You're a proficient leader, she pronounced, the words escaping her lips involuntarily. Rhys chuckled. I endeavor to be. However, it isn't perpetually seamless. There are perpetual menaces, continual trials, and at times, I question myself. His susceptibility astonished her. She had invariably perceived him as robust, self-assured, unwavering. His acknowledgement of self-doubt rendered him human. "Everyone grapples with self-doubt occasionally," she responded, squeezing his hand in a gentle manner. He regarded her, his eyes probing hers. "Thank you, Anya. Your words carry significant weight." Once again, a hushed atmosphere prevailed, the connection intensifying with each passing second. Anya recognized she was engaged in a perilous game. Each exchanged glance, each fleeting touch, represented a betrayal of her assigned mission. Yet, she couldn't resist the allure. She found herself drawn to him, akin to a moth captivated by a flame. "Rhys," she murmured softly, her voice imbued with a confluence of trepidation and desire. "There's something you ought to know about me." She hesitated, the words lodged within her throat. She couldn't divulge the complete truth, not as of yet. Nonetheless, she couldn't perpetuate the deception. He tilted his head, a concerned expression etched on his face. "What is it, Anya? You're free to confide anything." She inhaled deeply, attempting to formulate the appropriate words. "I'm not the person you believe me to be." His countenance remained unchanged. He simply waited, with unwavering patience, for her to proceed. The burden of her deceit was overwhelming. She had to impart something, anything, to alleviate the anguish tormenting her soul. "I carry a past," she articulated, her voice barely discernible. "A past that I deeply regret. I've committed acts I lament." Rhys squeezed her hand once more, in a reassuring gesture. "We all harbor regrets from our past, Anya. It's our subsequent conduct that truly matters." His comprehension served to disarm. She had anticipated judgment, censure. Instead, she encountered nothing but acceptance. "But what if those actions are beyond redemption?" she questioned, her eyes brimming with tears. Rhys cupped her face within his hands, his touch tender and comforting. "There is perpetual absolution, Anya. Even for the most heinous transgressions, one simply needs to be willing to forgive oneself." His verbiage served as a balm to her wounded spirit. She yearned to believe him, to trust that she could be absolved, that she could initiate anew. However, the shadow wolves had instilled within her that forgiveness equated to weakness, that the sole path to redemption lay in vengeance. She closed her eyes, tears cascading down her face. She found herself torn between two disparate worlds, two conflicting loyalties, two divergent destinies. And she remained uncertain as to which path to select. "I'm at a loss as to what to do," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. Rhys drew her into his arms, embracing her tightly. "It's acceptable," he soothed gently, stroking her hair. "I'm here to support you. You need not navigate this ordeal alone." In that instant, enveloped by the warmth of his embrace, Anya perceived a glimmer of optimism. Perhaps, just perhaps, she could unchain herself from her past, to sculpt a new existence for herself, an existence where she could embrace her authentic self, a future where she could be with Rhys. Yet, the ingrained tenets of her shadow wolf training reverberated within her mind, a frigid reminder of her sworn mission, of her binding duty. And she recognized that the path toward contentment would not be effortless. It would constitute a protracted, arduous voyage, fraught with peril and uncertainty. But for the first occasion in her existence, she felt willing to persevere. She was willing to wage a battle for Rhys. The weight of duty Anya's pulse hammered, a frantic tattoo against the Northwood's tranquil ambiance. Sunlight, fractured by the canopy, splashed across the earth in mosaic patterns, yet her vision remained fixed on the gathering dusk within. Not of the forest, but of memories and obligation. Kira's steely voice echoed. A familiar condemnation. Alphas are despots, Anya. They monopolize authority, preying on the vulnerable. Eradication is their due. Her hands tightened into fists, the memory of rigorous training a sudden, unwelcome intrusion. Years spent in brutal drills and relentless indoctrination had forged her into a lethal instrument, designed with a singular purpose: to dismantle alpha dominance. She'd been indoctrinated to see alphas as wolves cloaked in compassion, their magnetism a carefully constructed deception masking inherent brutality. Yet Rhys defied that. Portrait, last evening, resurfaced. His gaze, direct and concerned, the comforting warmth of his hand offered in solace. A disquieting contrast to Kira's poisonous pronouncements. He's manipulating you, Anya. Kira's voice whispered in her thoughts. Don't let his allure corrupt your resolve. Remember your parents. Anya gasped. Her parents. The catalyst for her vengeful quest. Casualties of an alpha's edict during a territorial dispute. Kira had weaponized that agony, molding Anya into an impeccable assassin. But now, the sharp edges of her resolve softened. Doubts, like insidious tendrils, began to twine around her purpose. Pushing off the moss-covered log, she bore the weight of her inner turmoil. Clarity demanded action, a reaffirmation of her mission. She located Rhys near the training grounds, observing a sparring match between young pack members. He carried himself with quiet strength, offering gentle guidance and encouragement, nothing like a tyrant's demeanor. Good form, Liam, Rhys commented, his voice clear in the woodland air. But maintain your defenses. Even the smallest adversary can exploit a weakness. Turning to the other novice, he continued, Eliza, your footwork is improving, but commit to your strikes, avoid hesitation. Anya observed his patient instruction, his eyes reflecting genuine care for their pa. Improvement. No barked commands or expectations of blind obedience. He was educating, fostering growth, building strength. As the practice concluded, Rhys noticed Anya at the edge of the clearing. A smile graced his features, a simple, authentic expression that sent a shiver through her. Anya, he greeted, his tone cordial. Everything all right? She swallowed, prepared falsehoods lodging in her throat. Just observing, she managed, her voice strained. Rhys studied her, his expression perceptive. You seem troubled, he said softly. Is there something you wish to discuss? The yearning to confide in him, to shed years of duplicity, nearly overwhelmed her, but ingrained fear held her captive. It's nothing, she fabricated, forcing a smile. Just adjusting. Rhys didn't push, the concern lingered in his gaze. If you need anything, Anya, don't hesitate. His words resonated like a soothing balm, a world apart from Kira's cold, strategic directives. Later, Anya found herself assisting with preparations for the approaching full moon festival. The air crackled with anticipation as pack members collaborated, sharing laughter and tales. She found herself drawn into the camaraderie, the feeling of belonging previously unknown. While adorning a table with vibrant wildflowers, she overheard two older members in conversation. Rhys has transformed this pack, one commented, her voice brimming with gratitude. He united us after the rogue attacks, offering sanctuary. He embodies the true alpha, the other concurred. Always prioritizing the pack's welfare. Anya's hands paused. These were not sentiments whispered under a tyrant's reign, but testaments to safety, protection, and care. That evening, beneath the full moon's ethereal luminosity, Anya stood solitary on a rise overlooking the pack's revelry. The sounds of laughter and music ascended to her, a symphony of joy and unity. She watched Rhys circulate amongst his pack, his expression radiating warmth and satisfaction. He was everything Kira had conditioned her to despise, everything she was trained to eradicate. Yet, she saw not a monster, but a guardian, a leader, a man genuinely devoted to his people. A wave of nausea washed over her, the weight of her obligation crushing her. Could she truly betray him? Could she execute her mission, given what she now knew? She closed her eyes, Kira's cold, unyielding visage etched in her mind. Duty above all, Anya. Never forget your purpose. But who was she? The ruthless assassin Kira had sculpted, or something more? Could she shatter the shackles of her history and create her own destiny? The answer lay in the impending choice. A choice between obligation and desire, between animosity and affection, between the shadows of her past and the potential of a brighter future. The moon dominated the sky, a silent observer of her internal battle. The burden of obligation pressed relentlessly. Yet, deep within her, a tiny ember of hope flickered, kindled by the warmth of Rhys's smile and the undeniable truth. She was falling for the very Alpha she was assigned to destroy. Seeds of doubt, the sharp tang of pine mingled with the musk of wet soil as Anya edged into the clearing. The pack gathering was imminent. Rhys, perched atop a verdant, moss-laden boulder that served as a dais, projected an effortless command that chafed at Anya. He detailed the forthcoming patrols, stressing vigilance against lone wolves, his voice a resonant baritone that vibrated through the assembled pack. Anya timed her maneuver precisely. Just as Rhys began outlining the updated training regimen for the younger members, she simulated a trip, scattering a clutch of smooth river stones against a downed tree with a sharp report. Head swiveled. Rhys broke off, his gaze flicking in her direction, a momentary flash of concern etching his features. "Are you all right, Anya?" he inquired, his tone laced with genuine solicitude. "Just a bit clumsy, Alpha," she replied, offering a self-deprecating smile. "My apologies." The disruption was fleeting, scarcely more than a ripple on a still pond. Yet, it achieved its purpose. It fractured Rhys's momentum, allowing a low murmur of conversation to percolate through the ranks, unsettling his carefully established focus. Gregor Blackwood, Rhys's second, cast a sharp, assessing glance her way, his frigid, calculating eyes lingering with undue intensity. Later, as the pack dispersed, Anya drifted towards a cluster absorbed in discussing the recent spike in rogue activity, feigning casual interest. "I hear they're growing bolder," she offered, pitching her voice low and conspiratorial. "Some are saying they're being driven from their lands by something or someone. Or, what do you mean?" A young she-wolf, barely through her first shifts, queried, her brow furrowed with worry. Anya shrugged, careful to appear indifferent. "Just rumors, of course. But I've overheard whispers of another pack, far to the south, encroaching on our territory. Maybe they're pushing the rogues toward us," she observed as the seeds of uncertainty took root. The young wolf's eyes widened, exchanging a nervous sidelong glance with her companion. Anya knew the gossip would spread like a contagion, breeding paranoia and mistrust. It was an insidious tactic, a shadow cast in the dark, but potentially ruinous. As dusk settled, Anya found herself drawn to the training grounds. The setting sun painted long shadows across the clearing as Rhys and Gregor engaged in a heated sparring match. The air thrummed with raw power as they moved, their forms a whirlwind of sinew and fur. Despite his affable nature, Rhys fought with a lithe ferocity, his movements economical and forceful. Gregor, conversely, fought with a savage intensity, his attacks relentless and unforgiving. Watching them, Anya felt a turmoil of conflicting emotions churn within her. Her objective was to pinpoint weaknesses, exploit vulnerabilities. Instead, she saw only potency, a wild, untamed strength that both captivated and intimidated. Following their grueling practice, Rhys approached her, his chest rising and falling, his eyes alight with exertion. "You seem to be ubiquitous this evening, Anya," he observed, his voice a quiet murmur. "Is everything the matter?" Anya manufactured a smile. "Just trying to be of use, Alpha. I want to earn my keep here." Rhys scrutinized her for a long, drawn-out moment, his gaze penetrating and unnervingly discerning. "You're a bright pupil, Anya, but I sense a restlessness within you. Something you're concealing." Her heart hammered against her ribs. Had he penetrated her disguise? Was her deception so blatant? I don't comprehend, Alpha," she stammered, averting her eyes. Rhys closed the distance between them, his presence overwhelming. "I'm a keen judge of character, Anya, and I perceive a darkness within you, a concealed pain. I wish to assist you, but you must permit me." His words struck her like a physical blow, shattering the carefully constructed defenses she had painstakingly erected around herself. She longed to trust him, to unburden herself, to expose her innermost self. But she could not. Not yet. "There's nothing to relate, Alpha," she murmured, her voice barely audible. "Merely old scars." Rhys sighed, his expression softening with compassion. "We all bear them, Anya, but you need not carry them in isolation." He extended a hand hovering near her arm, as if hesitant to make contact. "Seek me out when you're prepared to speak. I'll be here." He turned and departed, leaving Anya alone in the deepening shadows, her mind in turmoil. His kindness was a weapon, more formidable than any blade. It eroded her resolve, exposing the tender, defenseless core she had fought so valiantly to qua. Safeguard. Later that night, under the moon's silvery wash across the pack lands, Anya discovered Gregor Blackwood awaiting her near the forest's edge. "You've been quite active this evening," he stated, his voice a low snarl. "Tripping during the meeting, propagating rumors. When are you scheming, little refugee?" Anya tensed, her hand instinctively reaching for the concealed dagger beneath her cloak. "I'm ignorant of your meaning," she retorted, her voice frigid and defiant. Gregor chuckled, a grating, unpleasant sound. "Spare me the pretense, girl. I've been observing you. You aren't as virtuous as you feign." He moved closer, his eyes gleaming in the moonlight. "Tell me, Anya, what is your true objective?" Anya met his gaze squarely, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She knew she was treading a precarious path. One misstep, one ill-chosen word, and her carefully constructed persona would collapse, revealing her true nature. "I simply desire to belong," she stated, her voice carefully modulated. "Is that so difficult to fathom?" Gregor studied her for a long moment, his expression inscrutable. "Perhaps," he conceded at last. "But I'll be keeping a watchful eye on you, Anya. And should I discover you're lying, you'll rue the day." He spun around and vanished into the darkness, leaving Anya alone with her turbulent thoughts. The seeds of uncertainty had been sown, not solely among the pack, but also within Anya herself. Rhys's compassion, Gregor's suspicion they were tearing her asunder, compelling her to confront the deceptions she had been fed and the truth she desperately tried to suppress. The mission was growing increasingly intricate, the boundaries between duty and desire blurring with each sunrise. She had journeyed to Northwood to assassinate an Alpha, but she was beginning to question her ability to even squeeze the trigger. Accusations and lies, the mingled odors of evergreen and wet soil accompanied Rhys as he stepped into the cramped cabin assigned to Anya. Inside, the cloying sweetness of chamomile tea fought a losing battle against the sharp, coppery undertones of her fear. He dispensed with greetings. The banked fury in his gaze telegraphed his knowledge, or at least his strong suspicion. The door snicked shut behind him, the sound magnified in the small space, his imposing figure now an obstacle to her escape. "Anya," he began, his voice a deep thrum that resonated in the floorboards. "Tell me what's been going on." Her carefully rehearsed expression of injured innocence faltered. She met his eyes, forcing herself to hold his gaze. I don't know what you mean." "Don't insult my intelligence," Rhys retorted, pushing away from the door and advancing. The atmosphere thickened, charged with unspoken accusations. "The pack is uneasy, rumors, misgivings, and they all seem to center on you." Anya's breath hitched. "I haven't done anything except try to assimilate." "Is that so?" He halted a few feet away, within reach, the heat of his body and his distinct animal scent washing over her. "Or have you been poisoning the wellspring?" "That's a callous accusation," she parried, adding a tremble of affected hurt to her tone. "After everything I've endured." She let the words trail off, a silent appeal for understanding. Rhys remained unaffected. "Gregor has his doubts. He's been observing you." A knot tightened in Anya's stomach. Gregor. The elder wolf was an ever-present watcher, a lurking presence on the periphery. "Gregor distrusts anyone not born into the fold. And what about you, Anya? Should I extend that same trust?" Rhys challenged, closing the remaining space between them. His nearness, both intoxicating and menacing, threatened to shatter her carefully constructed composure. "Tell me the truth." She looked away, focusing on a flaw in the wooden floor. I don't know what you expect me to say." "I expect honesty," he amended, his voice softening with a note of entreaty. "Tell me what you've been up to. Tell me why the pack is fracturing." Anya raised her eyes, meeting his once more. The words trembled on her lips, the confession she knew she should offer, a chance to finally sever the ties of deceit, that years of conditioning, the deeply rooted animosity, held her captive. "I haven't done anything," she reiterated, the falsehood leaving a bitter aftertaste. "Someone must be trying to stir up trouble, trying to make me a scapegoat." Rhys scrutinized her face, his expression inscrutable. Anya held her breath, praying he wouldn't see past her charade. The silence stretched, taut and oppressive. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked with deafening insistence. At last, he sighed, raking a hand through his dark hair. "I want to believe you, Anya. Genuinely." The sincerity in his voice, the flicker of vulnerability in his eyes, struck her like a physical blow. Shame twisted in her stomach, a sharp, agonizing pang. How could she do this? How could she betray his faith? "Then believe me." "Ooh," she pressed, forcing conviction into her tone. "Please." He continued to search her features, hunting for a telltale sign. She loathed herself for deceiving him, for exploiting his faith and generosity. Still, she couldn't stop. The mission, the years of rigorous training, the ingrained loathing, were too deeply ingrained. "All right," he conceded finally, his voice tinged with regret. "I want to believe you, but be warned, Anya, I will be watching. And if I discover you've been lying..." He left the warning hanging, unvoiced but unmistakable. He turned and moved towards the door, his shoulders bowed, a picture of weary disappointment. He paused at the threshold, his back to her. "Why are you here, Anya?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "What are you truly seeking?" Anya offered no reply, unable to answer. The truth was too perilous, too wounding. He departed, closing the door soundlessly behind him. The ensuing silence was absolute. Anya sank onto the edge of the bed, her body shaking. The lie had been uttered, the deception reinforced. She had committed to her course, and there could be no turning back. Or so she insisted to herself. The aroma of chamomile, once comforting, now felt suffocating. She felt imprisoned by her own fabrications, trapped within a self-made cage. Rhys's words echoed in her head. "What are you truly seeking?" She no longer knew. The mission, once so well defined, now seemed clouded by uncertainty. The hatred, once a raging blaze, wavered, threatening to die out. All she knew for certain was she was falling for the Alpha she was assigned to kill. And that was a betrayal of everything she held dear. The night grew deeper, casting elongated shadows across the small cabin. Anya remained rooted to the bed, lost in contemplation, wrestling with the impossible dilemma before her. Duty versus yearning? Animosity versus affection? Annihilation versus existence? The scales were tipping, threatening to upset the fragile equilibrium she had so painstakingly maintained. The only question was, which way would she be thrown? Treachery within the fragrance of pine and loam typically soothed her, but tonight it felt like a vise. Anya slipped through the gloom, shadowing the perimeter of Northwood territory. Rhys's rebuke had robbed her of sleep. The sting of his disappointment resonated far more acutely than any lesson imparted by her shadow wolf instructors. She craved air. Space to process without the weight of his scrutiny. That's when she picked up the murmur. Low voices, dripping with a venom she knew intimately, the kind usually reserved for alphas. Instinct nudged her forward, crouching behind a screen of elderberry. Gregor, flanked by two others from the pack, their faces etched with discontent in the silver wash of the moon. "He's gone soft," Gregor was muttering, his voice a gravelly rasp. "Too trusting. Letting outsiders like her into the fold." Anya's breath caught in her throat. Her. He needs a sharp reminder of what strength truly is. A deeper voice rumbled in response. Northwood's wallowed in peace for too long. Peaceful? We're becoming flabby. The third voice hissed, cracking with the same zeal Anya knew intimately, echoing the skewed doctrines of her upbringing. He spends more time coddling stray pups than securing our borders. The rival packs are observing, waiting for weakness. Gregor's voice sliced through the mounting tension. "I have a plan. Something to re-establish our dominance and refocus Rhys." Anya strained to eavesdrop, her pulse hammering against her ribs. What were they plotting? A border provocation? An assassination masked as misadventure? Whatever their scheme, it was a blatant challenge to Rhys's leadership and possibly his life. "What about the Alpha bond?" the deeper voice questioned, a thread of hesitation present. A direct challenge could shatter the pack. Gregor scoffed derisively. "There are ways as subtle manipulations. Ways to plant seeds of doubt, to erode confidence. A few unfortunate incidents. A series of strategic failures. Indecision will paralyze him." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the group. The girl, Gregor lowered his voice further, has already cultivated unease. Rhys is second-guessing himself. We simply need to nurture that seed. A wave of icy dread washed over Anya. She was a mere piece in Gregor's game. He was exploiting her presence, her invented past, to destabilize Rhys's reign from within. This realization landed like a physical blow. She wasn't just betraying Rhys, she was being manipulated by his own lieutenant to destroy him. The exchange devolved into specifics: hushed talk of compromised patrols, skewed intelligence, and contrived incidents. The details swam around her, but the objective was crystal clear: to diminish Rhys, portray him as inept, and ultimately force his abdication. Anya's thoughts raced. She had to alert Rhys. Yet how? Exposing their scheme would unmask her as a shadow wolf, confirming every suspicion and solidifying her status as an enemy. And Gregor would know she had betrayed him. The consequences of that were terrifying. Yet could she simply stand aside and watch Rhys be methodically undermined by his own people? Could she allow the man who had extended her kindness, who had offered her refuge, to be betrayed and overthrown? The dogma of the shadow wolves, years of conditioning, the ingrained animosity, it all seemed to dissolve in the face of this stark reality. Rhys didn't deserve this. He had opened his heart and his home to her, a presumed stranger. He had recognized something within her, a quality she hadn't even acknowledged. His words from earlier that day echoed in her mind, the wounded expression in his eyes when he'd questioned if she was subverting him. He had wanted to believe her. He had placed his trust in her. Guilt gnawed at her, a raw agony that eclipsed all the hatred she had harbored. She had spent her life believing alphas to be ruthless, despotic rulers, deserving only of annihilation. But Rhys was different. He was empathetic, selfless, and genuinely devoted to his pack. He embodied everything the shadow wolves had conditioned her to abhor, and yet she felt drawn to him, compelled to shield him. The voices receded as Gregor and his co-conspirators vanished deeper into the woods, their conspiracy cloaked by the night. Anya remained frozen, wrestling with her conscience. The mission, her obligation, the vengeance she had vowed to enact. They all sounded hollow, insignificant against the backdrop of the impending treachery. She pictured Lyra, her mentor. What would Lyra advise? Lyra would insist she stay the course, exploit Gregor's plot to her advantage, and deliver the killing blow to Rhys when he was most vulnerable. But Anya wasn't Lyra. She wasn't the emotionless, ruthless killer she had been forged to be. Something new stirred within her, a precarious, unfamiliar warmth. It was protectiveness, loyalty, something verging on love, and it was terrifying in its intensity. A choice loomed. A choice that would determine not only Rhys's destiny but her own. She could remain on her treacherous path, fulfilling her mission and solidifying her position as a shadow wolf. Or she could reject everything she had ever known, risk everything she had ever valued, and stand against those who sought to destroy the alpha she was sworn to kill. The wind whispered secrets through the canopy. Anya closed her eyes, inhaled deeply, and reached her decision. She would safeguard Rhys. But the question remained. How? A wolf's warning, the fragrance of resin and loam permeated the air as Anya steered Rhys from the practice field, further into the sylvan depths. The clamor of their kin receded behind them, yielding to the forest's muted orchestra. Halting near a wizened oak, its limbs like bony fingers clawing at the twilight, urgency gripped her, a frigid coil of trepidation intertwined with resolve. "Rhys," she began, her tone barely audible, avoiding his penetrating stare, her gaze fixed upon the mosaic of lichen adorning the ancient bark. "There's something I must reveal, something significant." He pivoted to face her squarely, his expression a tableau of concern. The failing sun gilded his irises, lending them an unnerving luminosity. "What is it, Anya? You seem deeply troubled." Inhaling deeply, She at last met his gaze. I haven't been forthright about my past. A slight furrow appeared on his brow. What do you mean? I know you're fleeing something, that you sought haven here. It's far more complex than that, she confessed, the words spilling in a torrent. I wasn't merely running. I was dispatched. His eyes widened almost imperceptibly. Dispatched? By whom? The name left a bitter aftertaste. The Shadow Wolves. The air vibrated with unspoken tension, thick enough to cut with a knife. Rhys recoiled slightly, his features hardening. The Shadow Wolves? But they're just a bedtime story, a cautionary tale to frighten pups. They're real, Rhys, and lethally efficient. I was raised in their ranks, trained to despise alphas. His gaze sharpened. Inquisitive. Despise? Why? They believe alphas are inherently corrupt, that they amass power and exploit the vulnerable. They assert that true equality is achievable only through their removal. Rhys remained quiet for an extended moment, his eyes drilling into hers, seeking truth amidst the ba. Fabrications. The wind sighed through the canopy, a melancholic lament mirroring her inner chaos. And you? He finally inquired, his voice a low rumble. Do you subscribe to that belief? Anya averted her gaze, shame flooding her senses. I did. It was my indoctrination. But arriving here changed everything. I witnessed your leadership, your unwavering care for the pack. It defied all my expectations. Raising her head, she re-engaged his stare, pleading for comprehension. My directive was to infiltrate your pack, to earn your confidence, and then to assassinate you. The words hung suspended, oppressive and suffocating. Rhys did not flinch, did not recoil. He merely stood immobile, processing the shocking truth. But you didn't, he observed, his tone surprisingly even. No, she affirmed, a tremor lacing her voice. I couldn't. I can't. Why? He pressed, his eyes burning into hers. Anya gasped softly. Because She struggled against the lump in her throat. I care for you, Rhys, more deeply than I ever conceived possible. The declaration lingered between them, exposed and vulnerable. She steeled herself for his rejection, for the revulsion she felt she deserved, but it never materialized. Instead, a spark resembling hope flickered in his gaze. "And what of Gregor?" he inquired, his tone carefully measured. "He's aware of my identity," Anya responded, the burden of her deceit weighing heavily. "He's exploiting me. He and some others, they are plotting to undermine you, to portray you as weak, to incite strife within the pack. They believe I can be their asset, their spy from within." Rhys' jaw clenched. "What, precisely, are there schemes?" Anya related every overheard conversation, the murmured dissent, the meticulously planned events designed to destabilize his reign. She unveiled the anticipated disruptions during the forthcoming gathering, the rumors they intended to propagate, the alliances they were forging to challenge his rule. When she concluded, Rhys remained silent, his face etched with worry. He raked a hand through his hair, a gesture revealing his inner storm. "Thank you, Anya," he said at last, his voice edged with a weariness that pierced her heart, "for confiding this in me." "I should have spoken sooner," she replied, guilt eating at her conscience. He shook his head. "The important factor is that you spoke now, and I credit your word." His unwavering faith was a salve on her wounded spirit, but it amplified her anxiety. She had forsaken everything she had ever been taught, risked everything for him. And now, they were both in grave danger. "They won't relent," she cautioned. "Gregor is driven, unrelenting. He won't abandon this without a fight." "Then we'll be prepared," Rhys countered, a glint of steel entering his gaze. "We'll teach him the consequences of underestimating the Northwood pack." He drew closer, his hand rising to cradle her cheek. His caress was gentle, reassuring, sending a cascade of shivers down her spine. "I trust you, Anya, and I require your assistance." "Anything," she vowed, her voice thick with emotion. "Anything to safeguard you, to defend your pack." Rhys nodded, his gaze locking with hers. "Then let us begin planning. We must gather our allies, anticipate their strategies, and expose Gregor for the traitor he is." They devoted the next hour beneath the ancient oak, mapping out their countermeasures. Anya's insight into the Shadow Wolves' methods proved invaluable, enabling them to foresee Gregor's ploys and devise defensive tactics. Rhys, in turn, offered his profound knowledge of the pack's internal structure, distinguishing those who were loyal from those susceptible to Gregor's promises. As the final tendrils of daylight receded, draping the forest floor in long shadows, they had formulated a course of action. It was perilous, fraught with risk, yet it represented their sole prospect of shielding the pack and revealing Gregor's perfidy. "We must proceed with caution," Rhys warned, his voice dropping. "Gregor is cunning, and he has accomplices embedded within the pack. We cannot place our unqualified faith in anyone." "I understand," Anya acknowledged, her hand instinctively reaching for the concealed dagger beneath her cloak. "Old habits die hard." "No," Rhys said, gently grasping her hand. "No more secrets. No more reliance on weapons. We face this in unity, as a single entity." Anya hesitated, then nodded slowly. She relinquished her hold on the dagger, placing her confidence in Rhys, placing her confidence in the pack, placing her confidence in the potential for a future she had never dared to envision. As they retraced their steps toward the packlands, hand clasped in hand, Anya recognized that the road ahead would be fraught with peril. Yet she also understood that she was not isolated in this struggle. She had Rhys, she had the pack, and she had a newfound sense of purpose. She was no longer merely a Shadow Wolf assassin. She was a guardian, a warrior, a wolf who had at last discovered her place in the world, and she would battle to preserve it, with every fiber of her being. Unmasking the beta, the scent of pine and damp earth clung to Rhys as he entered the library, a place usually filled with the quiet rustle of turning pages now buzzing with a tense anticipation. Anya stood by the large, scarred wooden table, a scattering of parchment spread before her like a battlefield map. The fire crackled merrily in the hearth, a deceptive counterpoint to the grim task ahead. "Did you find anything?" Rhys asked, his voice low, the weight of the pack heavy on his shoulders. Anya looked up, her expression a mixture of determination and weariness. "Gregor's been busy. These are ledgers, records of pack supplies specifically, the meat stores. The numbers don't add up. There's a significant discrepancy between what was delivered and what was logged as distributed." Rhys leaned closer, his gaze sharp. "Embezzlement? He's stealing from the pack? Or diverting resources?" Anya countered, her fingers tracing a column of figures. "Perhaps to fund something or someone else, like the disgruntled wolves Gregor's been whispering to." Rhys finished, a muscle twitching in his jaw. "He's playing a dangerous game. He believes he's untouchable," Anya said, her voice hardening. "That's his weakness. He underestimates those around him." Including you, Rhys added softly, his eyes meeting hers. He sees you as a frightened refugee, easy to manipulate. Anya gave a mirthless smile. Let him. It gives me an advantage. They worked late into the night, the only sounds the scratching of Anya's quill and the occasional rustle of parchment. The more they uncovered, the clearer Gregor's treachery became. He had cultivated a network of allies within the pack, wolves who were either ambitious, disgruntled, or simply loyal to him out of habit. Each new revelation felt like another twist of the knife in Rhys's heart. He's been funneling resources to the southern border, Anya said, pointing to a series of entries, claiming increased patrol activity due to rogue wolf sightings, but the numbers are inflated, by a lot. Rhys frowned. The southern border, that's where the Silver Creek Pack territories begin. Gregor knows Alpha Ilara and I are working on a trade agreement. Perhaps he doesn't want that agreement to succeed, Anya suggested, her eyes narrowed. Perhaps he profits from keeping the packs divided. Suddenly, a loud knock echoed through the library. Rhys and Anya exchanged a quick glance. Who is it? Rhys called out, his hand instinctively moving towards the dagger concealed beneath his tunic. It's me, Beta Elias, a voice boomed from the other side of the door. I need to speak with you, Alpha, urgently. Rhys hesitated. Elias was one of Gregor's closest allies, a hulking brute with a reputation for unquestioning loyalty. What is it, Elias? It concerns the refugee, the one you've taken in. Rhys's eyes hardened. Wait outside. I will be with you shortly. He turned to Anya, his expression grim. He knows something. Gregor must suspect. We have to be careful, Anya warned. He'll be looking for any excuse to discredit us. Rhys nodded. I'll handle Elias. You stay here and continue your work. Be ready to leave quickly if necessary. As Rhys opened the door, Elias pushed his way in, his eyes immediately locking onto Anya. What is she doing here, Alpha? This is pack business. Anya is assisting me with pack matters, Rhys said firmly, his voice brooking no argument. What is it you wanted to discuss, Elias? Elias shifted uncomfortably, his gaze flickering between Anya and Rhys. There are rumors circulating, Alpha, about her past, about why she left her old pack. Rumors spread by whom, Elias? Rhys challenged, his voice laced with steel. Some wolves are concerned about her loyalty, Alpha. They say she's hiding something. Everyone has a past, Elias, Rhys said, his eyes narrowing. Anya has proven her loyalty to this pack. I trust her implicitly. He put a subtle emphasis on the last word, watching Elias's reaction. Elias's face flushed. With all due respect, Alpha, trusting a stranger so quickly, it's unlike you. Gregor just worries about the pack. Gregor worries about his own power, Rhys countered, his voice dangerously low. Tell Gregor that if he has concerns, he can bring them to me directly. I will not tolerate him spreading rumors and undermining my authority. Elias, sensing the shift in Rhys's demeanor, backed down slightly. Of course, Alpha. I was just relaying the concerns of the pack. See that you relay my response as well, Rhys said, his eyes unwavering. He stepped aside, gesturing towards the door. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have important work to do. Elias hesitated for a moment, then turned and lumbered out of the library. Rhys closed the door, leaning against it for a moment, his chest heaving. He's testing you, Anya said softly, trying to gauge your commitment to me. He's trying to drive a wedge between us, Rhys corrected, his gaze meeting hers. But he won't succeed. He pushed himself away from the door and crossed the room to Anya, taking her hand in his. We need to move faster. Gregor is growing suspicious. We need to find concrete evidence, something that will expose his treachery to the entire pack. I think I know where to look, Anya said, a spark of determination in her eye. Her eyes. Gregor's personal chambers. He wouldn't keep anything incriminating in his official office. We need to search his private quarters. That's a risk, Rhys cautioned. If we're caught, we won't be, Anya said, her grip tightening on his hand. We'll be careful. We have to be. This is the only way to stop him. Rhys looked into her eyes, seeing the fire of determination burning within them. He knew she was right. They had to take the risk. Tonight, he said, his voice low and resolute. We raid Gregor's chambers tonight. Forbidden knowledge, the oak door thudded shut, a hushed seal on Gregor's sanctuary. Moonbeams, fractured by a slender window, painted the air with floating dust, highlighting the room's expensive clutter. A monumental desk, laden with scrolls and account books, spoke volumes of Gregor's obsessive nature. The air, redolent with aged parchment and the ghost of fine tobacco, pressed in around them. Rhys, radiating a quiet resolve, moved with heightened awareness. His fingers trailed along the desk's edge, his brow creased with concern. He's meticulous, almost compulsively so. I doubt he'd be careless enough to leave obvious proof. Anya lingered by the portal, her gaze encompassing the space. A nervous flutter quickened her pulse. The atmosphere felt tainted, pregnant with untold secrets. He operates with arrogance, Rhys. He considers himself beyond reproach. We need to delve beneath the surface. A lesson from Kira echoed in her mind, a bone-chilling exercise in subversion and manipulation. The most potent secrets wear the mask of the mundane, Volkov, the everyday. Learn to perceive beyond the deceptive veneer. Anya zeroed in on the apparently inconsequential a rug's subtle misalignment, minute abrasions scarring a hefty bookcase. She approached it, her fingertips dancing over the tooled leather spines. Mostly tedious legal briefs and chronicles. Nothing that shrieked of sedition. Anya, your focus? Rhys murmured, sifting through the documents on the desk. A recess. A disguised panel. Anything anomalous, she murmured back, her voice taut. Something Gregor would guard jealously. She exerted pressure on the bookcase's flank, testing for any give. Futile. Frustration nipped at her. Kira's indoctrination ran deep, but deploying it against someone against their own felt like a profound betrayal. Especially when Rhys stood in the balance. Then, her fingers snagged on a minute imperfection in the wood, barely perceptible. She depressed it. A segment of the bookcase clicked softly and pivoted inward, revealing a shallow alcove. Anya caught her breath. Within, cradled by velvet, lay several letters, each bearing an unfamiliar sigil. A small, exquisitely wrought box of ebony sat adjacent. Rhys, she breathed, the word barely audible. I believe I've unearthed something. Rhys was at her side instantly, his eyes widening as the concealed compartment came into view. Deftly, he retrieved a letter, breaking the seal. As he perused the contents, his face darkened, his jaw a rigid line. Communications with the Ironwood clan, he spat, his voice brimming with fury. Gregor has been parleying with them behind my back, offering them lucrative timber concessions in exchange for what? Allegiance? A pact? Anya lifted the wooden box. It possessed surprising heft. She paused. What is it? Rhys questioned, noticing her hesitation. She opened it. Nestled on crimson silk lay a vial containing a thick, opaque fluid. The faint metallic scent that emanated from it was instantly recognizable. Wolfsbane. But not just any wolfsbane. This was concentrated, refined, weaponized into something far more lethal. Anya's heart pounded a frantic rhythm against her ribs. This surpassed mere embezzlement or sabotage of trade agreements. This threatened something far more catastrophic, something capable of dismantling the pack itself. She met Rhys' gaze, seeing it clouded with apprehension and disillusionment. "This isn't about power plays, Rhys. This is about killing wolves." Rhys took the vial, scrutinizing it. His expression became flinty. "Gregor wouldn't he?" Anya challenged, her tone sharp. "He's been siphoning off funds, propagating slander about me, and now this. He's plotting something, Rhys. Something significant." She understood she had to divulge everything. Her formative years, Kira, the Shadow Wolves, and their virulent antipathy for Alphas. But how could she expose such a truth without shattering the burgeoning trust between them? "Trust serves as a conduit, Volkov," Kira had hissed, her voice devoid of warmth. "Harness it with precision. Utilize it to dismantle your adversary's defenses. Then, deliver the decisive blow." But Rhys wasn't an adversary. He represented everything she had denied herself. "There's more," she began, her voice unsteady. "Something I must reveal." Rhys placed a hand on her arm, his touch sending a surge of heat through her. "Whatever burden you carry, Anya, share it with me." She drew a bolstering breath, fortifying herself. "There exists a technique, a proscribed technique practiced by the Shadow Wolves. It grants us the ability to auto-anticipate an opponent's actions, to foresee their strategies. It hinges on deciphering their deepest fears, their most vulnerable points." Rhys frowned, perplexed. "Proscribed? Why?" "Because it necessitates a profound connection," Anya explained, her voice tight. "A mental merging. It's perilous. It can be corrupting." She had witnessed it only once, during her culminating exercise. The Shadow Wolf who executed the technique had been left enervated, diminished, and altered. Her eyes had become vacant, her spirit hollowed. "I'm not fond of the sound of this," Rhys said, his voice tinged with unease. "I know," Anya responded. "But if our aim is to understand Gregor's machinations, if we intend to intercept him before he inflicts harm, it might constitute our sole recourse." She faltered. "The technique represented a violation, a forced intrusion into another's psyche. It clashed with her core beliefs, or at least, the values she was beginning to embrace. But the image of Gregor, with his wolfsbane and his clandestine alliances, iced her blood." She searched Rhys' face, finding hope flickering in his eyes, an unwavering trust. "I can do it," she declared, her voice firm despite her inner reservations. "But its success hinges on trust, absolute and unwavering." Rhys framed her face with his hands, his gaze penetrating. "I trust you, Anya, more profoundly than you realize." A wave of remorse washed over her. He placed his faith in her, despite her continued obfuscation. But she couldn't unveil all, not yet. Not until she possessed certainty. She lowered her eyelids, inhaled deeply, and reached for Rhys's hand. "Then let's proceed." The Confrontation, a pall hung over the great hall, typically alive with raucous fellowship, as Rhys commanded attention at the head of the long table, his gaze a sweeping survey of his pack. Anya stood beside him, the spectre of her history a tangible weight upon her shoulders. On the table sat the vial, its virulent green luminescence a silent accusation. "I have a proclamation," Rhys began, his voice imbued with a steely resolve Anya had not witnessed before, a revelation that will fracture the very bedrock of this community. At the far end, Gregor shifted uncomfortably, his usual bonhomie replaced by a pinched silence, avoiding Anya's eyes. For weeks, Rhys pressed on. I have sensed a viper coiled amongst us, a malignancy threatening to extinguish the camaraderie and faith we've cultivated here in Northwood. Today, that viper reveals itself. His eyes looked onto Gregor. Gregor Blackwood, I denounce you as a traitor. A collective intake of breath shuddered through the hall. Murmurs ignited, disbelief warring with the grim dawn of understanding. Gregor rose deliberately, his face a study in wounded innocence. Rhys, what madness is this? He demanded, his tone edged with offense. After my years of service, my allegiance your allegiance? Rhys spat, his voice laced with bitter contempt. It extends only to the borders of your ambition. We uncovered this. He indicated the vial. Wolfsbane, weaponized, Gregor. Enough to incapacitate half the pack. And we have confirmation of your clandestine meetings with envoys from the Ironwood clan. Gregor's practiced composure fractured. A fleeting tremor of panic flickered in his eyes before he reasserted control, his features hardening into a mask of frigid calculation. So, I've been watched? You place more faith in this outsider, he sneered, gesturing towards Anya, than in your own beta? I trust in evidence, Rhys retorted. And the evidence condemns you. What defense do you offer, Gregor? I say, Gregor hissed, his voice dripping with venom, that you have grown feeble. Rhys, effete. You've allowed refugees and strangers within our sanctuary, diminishing our strength. The Ironwood clan comprehends the wolf's true nature. Power, dominance. You have forgotten it. He slammed a fist against the table, the impact silencing the burgeoning clamor. I was merely exploring avenues, Rhys. Alternatives to ensure the pack's survival in an increasingly perilous world. Your judgment is clouded by sentiment. Sentiment? Rhys echoed, his voice dropping to a dangerous rumble. I call it fealty. I call it family. Concepts clearly alien to you. Gregor's hand instinctively moved to the dagger at his waist. Then you leave me no recourse. He unsheathed the weapon, the steel winking in the torchlight. Those who stand with me, stand for the unadulterated strength of Northwood. Those who stand with Rhys, champion weakness and decline. Taut silence gripped the air, broken solely by the crackling hearth. Then, a scattering of wolves, their faces set with resolve, stepped forward to align themselves with Gregor. Anya recognized several wolves who had always harbored ambition, discontentment with Rhys's rule. The conflict detonated with explosive force. A primal roar ripped from Rhys's throat as he launched himself at Gregor, his transformation swift, a magnificent ebony beast, eyes burning with righteous fury. Gregor met him head-on, morphing into a massive gray wolf, teeth bared in a savage challenge. Anya didn't hesitate. She shifted, her silver pelt bristling, and plunged into the fray. She targeted Gregor's supporters, her movements a blur of lethal grace. Years of brutal training had honed her into a living weapon. But this night, she fought not for the shadow wolves, but for the pack she had come to cherish, for the Alpha she had come to admire. The great hull dissolved into a maelstrom of fur, claws, and fangs. The air throbbed with snarls, guttural growls, and the sickening impact of bodies against the flagstone floor. Anya evaded a swipe from a burly brown wolf, retaliating with a precise strike to his flank, sending him sprawling. She caught a glimpse of Rhys, locked in a ferocious struggle with Gregor, their powerful forms colliding with the walls, shredding tapestries and demolishing furniture. One of Gregor's adherents, a lean she-wolf with watchful eyes, spotted an opening and pounced on Rhys from behind. Anya intercepted her, tackling her to the ground. They grappled across the floor, a whirlwind of silver and brown, teeth gnashing, claws tearing. Anya managed to subdue the she-wolf, her fangs bared inches from her throat. "Yield," she snarled. The she-wolf spat in her face. "Never! You're a turncoat, just like Gregor said." Anya faltered, a shadow of doubt clouding her resolve. Was she a traitor? To whom did her allegiance truly lie? To the shadow wolves who had molded her into a killer? Or to this pack, this Alpha, who had extended kindness and trust? She made her choice. She released the she-wolf, shoving her away. "Get out," she commanded, her voice low but unwavering. "It doesn't have to end this way." The she-wolf glared at her, then scrambled to her feet and vanished. Anya pivoted back to the core conflict. Rhys was gaining ground, his superior strength and agility gradually wearing Gregor down. But Gregor was a seasoned warrior, and he fought with desperate intensity. Suddenly, Gregor managed to throw Rhys off balance, sending him crashing into a stone pillar. Rhys stumbled, momentarily dazed. Gregor seized the opportunity, lunging for Rhys's throat. Anya reacted instinctively. She hurled herself at Gregor, hitting him with the full force of her momentum. He was thrown off course, his attack missing Rhys's throat by mere inches. Instead, his teeth ripped into Rhys's shoulder. Rhys roared in agony, regaining his footing. He turned on Gregor with renewed ferocity, unleashing a storm of attacks. Anya fought alongside him, their movements seamlessly coordinated, a deadly ballet of tooth and claw. Together, they overwhelmed Gregor. Rhys finally managed to pin him to the ground, his immense paws pressing down on Gregor's chest. Gregor struggled, but Rhys held him immobile. "It's over, Gregor," Rhys growled, his voice heavy with sorrow and condemnation. "You betrayed us all." Gregor stared up at Rhys, his gaze burning with animosity. "You'll rue this, Rhys," he snarled. "The Ironwood clan will avenge me. They'll obliterate everything you've built." Rhys remained silent. He turned to Anya, his eyes reflecting a mixture of gratitude and uncertainty. "Anya," he said, his voice softening. "Thank you." The battle was finished. The remaining members of Gregor's faction, witnessing their leader's defeat, had either scattered or submitted. The great hall was a desolate tableau of destruction, strewn with upturned furniture, shattered glass, and blood. The air was thick with the odors of fear and wrath, but amidst the devastation, Anya experienced a peculiar sense of serenity. She had made her decision. She had forsaken her past, embraced her future, and she had fought alongside the Alpha she had been destined to assassinate. The ramifications of her actions remained to be seen. But for now, she stood with Rhys, prepared to confront whatever lay ahead. Exposed Gregor's bellow hammered against Anya's sternum, a raw, bestial declaration aimed squarely at Rhys. The Alpha, reeling from wolfsbane in battle, staggered, clutching a bleeding flank. Anya gasped. Driven by fury and desperation, Gregor seized the advantage, a flurry of fangs and claws intended to extinguish Rhys and his authority. "Rhys!" Alara's cry was swallowed by the pandemonium of the pack's infighting loyalists against the seduced. Anya's thoughts spun. She was trapped, torn between rigid conditioning as a shadow wolf and the warmth that unfurled within her whenever Rhys so much as glanced her way. Gregor was gaining ground, his assault relentless. Each strike chipped away at Rhys's strength. This wasn't the blueprint. Subtlety, deception, that was the assigned course, not this savage, brutal coup. She winced as Gregor's claws scored a crimson path across Rhys's arm. A roar, pain laced with defiance, ripped from Rhys's throat, but it lacked its previous vigor. Gregor sprang, aiming for the kill. Anya's lungs seized, her mind blanked. She simply reacted. A dark, forbidden power surged from her cool veilbreaker. A skill drilled into her, yet prohibited except in direst straits. It offered a shadow wolf fleeting access to ancestral raw energy, granting impossible speed and power, but exacting a brutal price. It drained their reserves, leaving them defenseless. Yet, it was Rhys's only chance. Ignoring the internal alarms, Anya embraced the veilbreaker. The world seemed to leech of speed. She saw Gregor's attack zeroing in on Rhys's neck with excruciating clarity. She saw the stark fear gripping Ilara and confusion clouding the combatants' faces. Moving with impossible speed, Anya slammed into Gregor, diverting him from Rhys. The impact threw him off balance, his eyes widening. Rhys gaped at her, his gaze registering the faint, shimmering Oreva veilbreaker's tell. "Anya, what?" he rasped, cradling his wounded arm. Anya ignored him, her attention riveted on Gregor as he scrambled up, suspicion sharpening his features. He recognized the power swirling around her and what it signified. "You," he spat, his voice dripping poison. "A shadow wolf." The pronouncement crashed through the air, silencing the fight with chilling force. Every eye locked onto Anya, emotions ranging from incredulity to rage. Anya's heart hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs. The veilbreaker was already exacting its toll, leaving her trembling and vulnerable. Yet, she stood firm, her gaze unwavering on Gregor. "I am what I must be," she stated, her voice surprisingly steady despite the chaos within. "Lies," Gregor roared. "You infiltrated our pack, feigning refugee status. You're a spy, an assassin, planted here to eliminate Rhys." A chorus of accusations and enraged shouts erupted. Anya felt their distrust, their animosity, washing over her like a crushing wave. "Is it true?" Ilara demanded, her voice cracking with hurt. "Anya, tell me it's not true." Anya met Ilara's gaze, her heart aching. She valued the healer, viewing her as a confidant. But how to explain? How to bridge the divide? Rhys, still weak yet regaining his footing, stepped forward, laying a hand on Anya's arm. His touch sparked through her. "Let her speak," he commanded, his voice carrying unexpected weight despite his condition. Anya met his gaze, searching for any flicker of betrayal or doubt. Instead, she found comprehension, and something deeper, something that stole her breath. I was trained by the shadow wolves," she confessed, her voice barely audible. "But I am not here to kill Rhys. I swear it." "Then the veilbreaker?" Gregor challenged, triumph glinting in his eyes. "That power is exclusive to their kind. You can't deny your allegiance, assassin." Anya hesitated, at a loss. How could she convey the lies she had absorbed, the years of indoctrination? How could she articulate the agonizing awakening, the realization that her entire world was built on falsehoods? "I used it to save Rhys," she stated, her voice now firm, fueled by desperation to be believed. Gregor was going to kill him. I couldn't allow it. "More fabrications," Gregor bellowed. You expect us to swallow that you, a shadow wolf assassin, would jeopardize yourself to protect an alpha? Preposterous. He rounded on the pack, his voice dripping with disdain. Don't be swayed by her theatrics. She's manipulating you all. As trained, she'll betray you at the first opportunity. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, uncertainty etched on their faces. Anya felt their trust erode, replaced by trepidation and suspicion. Rhys squeezed her arm, his touch anchoring her amid the turmoil. He addressed the pack, his gaze resolute. I trust her, he declared, his voice resonating with conviction. I know what I witnessed. Anya saved my life, and I believe her. His words hung in the air, a direct challenge to their mounting skepticism. Some registered confusion, others outright disbelief. Still, some hesitated, glimmers of hope flickering across their features. Gregor scoffed. You're scoffed. A fool, Rhys. You're allowing sentiment to cloud your judgment. She's ensnared you, just as she was programmed. He advanced on Anya, malice flaring in his gaze. It's time this deception concluded. Before Gregor could reach her, Rhys moved, positioning himself as a shield. Wounded, yes, but still alpha, and he would defend his pack, even from one who appeared to be among them. She is under my protection, Rhys said, his voice laced with a low, dangerous undercurrent. Tension filled the very air. The pack stood fractured, caught between loyalty to Rhys and distrust of Anya. The truth had surfaced, yet the fight was far from finished. The rebels stand the initial warning wasn't a vocalization, but a subterranean shudder that resonated through Anya's body, jarring her from the soles of her feet upward. A fractured cadence, utterly alien to the forest's natural heartbeat. Beneath her cloak, she tightened her hold on the knife's handle, her heart hammering a frantic tattoo against her ribs. Across the clearing, Rhys, overseeing the strengthening of the hasty barricades, stilled, tilting his head, mirroring her disquiet. Then the ululations began, not the whines of creatures ensnared, but the bestial, despairing cries of wolves ambushed and vulnerable. Pandemonium exploded. The air, previously redolent with evergreen and moist earth, was abruptly slashed by the coppery reek of spilled blood. They erupted from the trees then, shadow wolves. Yet these were not the disciplined, robed warriors of her memory. These were zealots, their eyes blazing with fanatic fervor, claws unsheathed, ripping and mauling. Kira had unleashed her war dogs. Rhys's bellow, a directive that sliced through the bedlam, rang out. Hold the line! Protect the wounded! He morphed, a maelstrom of argent fur and gnashing fangs, launching himself into the thick of it. Anya remained an effigy of ice and internal conflict. Every fiber of her being urged her toward Kira, to stand beside her sisters, to fulfill the purpose branded into her soul. But another, stronger summons, echoing the warmth of Rhys's gaze and his inherent kindness, kept her anchored. A youngling, barely capable of transformation, stumbled by, a leg cruelly maimed. A shadow wolf, eyes gleaming with sadistic pleasure, advanced. Anya reacted without conscious thought. She intercepted the attacker, her blade a glinting arc in the fading light. The shadow wolf snarled, recognizing the combat stance, the deadly expertise. Anya? What is this? It was Ilara, a childhood companion, her visage twisted with incredulity and rage. I'm making a choice, Anya stated, her tone devoid of all feeling. Ilara lunged. Anya parried, the screech of steel on claw reverberating across the clearing. With a swift maneuver, she disarmed Ilara, pinning her to the ground. Run, Anya breathed. Escape, Your life doesn't have to end here. Ilara spat, the saliva landing on her cheek. Traitor. You will rue this betrayal. Anya released her, turning her back on her former ally. Regret was a luxury she couldn't afford. Rhys was overwhelmed, fighting with a ferocity born of desperation. She joined him, her veil-breaker power surging, a shimmering bulwark of energy deflecting a storm of blows. Rhys flicked his gaze to her, his eyes awash with a blend of gratitude and disbelief. Anya, you're not obligated to do this. I know, she replied, her voice a bare murmur over the cacophony. I choose to. Side by side they battled, a vortex of luminescence and shade against the relentless surge of shadow wolves. She spotted Kira across the ravaged terrain, her gaze fixated on Rhys, a predatory hunger burning in her eyes. Kira moved with chilling precision, carving through Rhys's pack as efficiently as a reaper harvests wheat. Anya understood what had to be done. She couldn't shield Rhys if she remained in a defensive posture. She needed to bring the fight to Kira. Rhys, guard the pack, she declared, her tone resolute. I will handle Kira. He hesitated, his gaze probing her face. Be wary, Anya. She is formidable. Anya offered a curt nod, her jaw firm. I am aware. She navigated the chaos, her veil-breaker power repelling the shadow wolves, forging a path toward Kira. The two women converged in the heart of the carnage, surrounded by a macabre circle. I am sorely disappointed, Anya, Kira remarked, her voice disarmingly calm. I believed I had trained you to a higher standard. You molded a weapon, Kira, Anya countered, her voice steely. Not a daughter. A mere technicality, Kira scoffed. You were meant to fulfill a purpose, to eradicate the alphas who subjugate us. Subjugate, Anya offered a mirthless, hollow laugh. Rhys has displayed nothing but kindness and compassion. He cherishes his pack, Kira spat. They are all liars. They wield their power to control and exploit. That is untrue, Anya countered, her voice rising in intensity. You have distorted reality to serve your own twisted objectives. My objective is liberation, Kira roared. Freedom from the tyranny of the alphas. And what manner of liberation is it when it is founded on animosity and bloodshed? Anya challenged. That is not liberation, Kira. It is merely another manifestation of oppression. Kira pounced, claws extended, aiming for Anya's jugular. Anya evaded the strike, her knife a streak of silver. The two women commenced a lethal ballet, a whirlwind of steel and claw, of resentment and defiance. You were always my finest acolyte, Kira said, her voice strained with exertion. Such a squandering of potential to forsake it all for him. It is not a waste, Anya stated, blocking another blow. It is a conscious choice, my choice. She discerned an opening, a transient moment of vulnerability in Kira's posture. She surged forward, her knife finding its mark. Not a mortal wound, but a crippling one, severing the tendons in Kira's arm. Kira shrieked, cradling her damaged limb. The fight ebbed from her, replaced by a gaze of stunned disbelief. You have betrayed me, she murmured, her voice laced with agony. No, Kira, Anya said, her voice gentler now. You have betrayed yourself. The remaining shadow wolves, witnessing their leader's downfall, began to waver. Rhys and his pack seized the advantage, driving them back into the forest's depths. The assault had ended. The clearing resembled a scene of utter desolation. Bodies carpeted the ground, the fallen including both shadow wolves and members of Rhys's pack. The air hung heavy with the stench of blood and mortality. Yet, amidst the carnage, there was also a palpable sense of relief, of mere survival. Rhys approached Anya, his face etched with worry. "Are you unharmed?" Anya nodded, wincing as she rotated her shoulder. "I will endure." He reached out, framing her face with his hands. His eyes, typically overflowing with warmth and invitation, were now filled with a profound sadness. "Why, Anya? What was the reason for their attack?" Anya hesitated, knowing that she could no longer conceal the truth from him. They were dispatched to assassinate you, Rhys. I was among them." The confession lingered in the air, weighted with treachery. Rhys's complexion blanched, his grip on her face lessening. You intended to kill me?" he questioned, his voice barely audible. Anya nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I did, but I could not. I was incapable of it." She braced herself for his anger, for his repudiation. But neither materialized. Instead, he enfolded her in a tight embrace, burying his face in her hair. "Thank you, Anya," he whispered. "Thank you for choosing us." The battle might have been won, but the broader war was far from concluded. Anya had made her decision, opting to align herself with Rhys and his pack. However, she knew that her past would continue to pursue her relentlessly, but the shadow wolves would know no peace until she was eliminated. And she knew that Kira, even in defeat, would never pardon her defection. The rebels' stand had been taken. Now, Anya must confront the consequences. Shattered beliefs, the air vibrated with more than just potential energy. It pulsed with Kira's raw might. The forest floor, formerly a gentle carpet of decaying foliage, bore the brutal imprint of their struggle. Iron tang and raw fear pricked at Anya's nostrils, yet beneath the panic, a spark of resolve refused to be extinguished. She circled her former mentor, the light catching the edge of her makeshift blade, turning the silver to fleeting sun daggers. "Why, Anya?" Kira's voice, once a comforting melody, now scraped like gravel. "Why turn your back on everything we built, everything I entrusted to you?" Anya stilled, anchoring herself. "You taught me only to despise, Kira, to see alphas as devils in disguise. But your vision was flawed." A rasping laugh tore from Kira's throat, a sound that crawled along Anya's skin. "Flawed? They exploit us, drain our lifeblood, revel in their dominance. Look at Rhys. Has he bewitched you? Manipulated you with that alpha charm?" "He showed me grace," Anya retorted, her voice gaining steel. "A pack that bonds through caring, not intimidation, not the dreg you fostered. Tenderness is a fault, Anya. It leaves you open, vulnerable. It softens you into weakness." Kira spat the word like venom. "No," Anya countered, shaking her head. "Love is a source of power. It fuels your will, gives you something precious to defend." Kira's eyes narrowed to icy points. "You're tainted. I should have foreseen this. You always possessed a delicacy I tried to eradicate." She surged forward, a whirlwind of lethal grace, her own honed blade aimed for Anya's core. Anya met the attack, the shriek of steel on steel echoing through the ancient trees. She pivoted, utilizing Rhys's lessons not as instruments of death, but as bulwarks against it. "You misjudge him, Kira. He's not the monster you've conjured. He's an alpha, Anya. They're all cut from the same cloth, thirsty for dominion, wrapped in false promises." Anya deflected another blow, the impact numbing her. Then why did he offer me mercy? He knew my purpose, my mission. He could have ended me, but he held back. Kira recoiled, momentarily unbalanced. He's playing a game. He'll use you, break you, just as they always do. No, Anya insisted, conviction ringing in her tone. He extended a choice, a freedom you never granted. Kira's face twisted into a mask of fury. I gave you direction, rescued you from oblivion, offered you belonging, a purpose to embrace, a belonging built on deceit and bile. Anya shot back, her voice tinged with anguish. A purpose that demanded I become something monstrous. Kira roared, launching a renewed onslaught. Anya parried, each block, each evasion, fueled by the fire within her. She saw the years of training reflected in Kira's movements, the endless drills, the icy precision. But she glimpsed something else too. The naked fear in Kira's gaze, the desperation clinging to each strike. They spun a deadly dance, blades flashing in the dappled light, breaths ragged in the watchful stillness. Anya gasped as Kira's blade scored her side, a hot, stinging reminder. She ignored the blossoming pain, focusing on her objective. She had to breach Kira's defenses, past the physical and into the emotional. You're scared, Kira, Anya rasped, evading another thrust. Terrified that your beliefs are built on sand. For a fleeting moment, Kira's attack faltered, long enough for Anya to witness the truth reflected within her eyes. The years of animosity, the unwavering faith in the shadow wolves, were fracturing. Don't listen to her, Kira shrieked, pressing her assault. She seeks to poison your mind. Seizing her opportunity, Anya feinted, then lunged, disarming Kira with a swift, decisive motion. Kira's blade clattered to the earth, leaving her vulnerable. Anya pressed her own knife to Kira's throat, the cold steel a stark contrast to the burning intensity in her eyes. It's finished, Kira. Kira stared, her expression a tangle of disbelief and betrayal. You can't do this, Anya. I'm your mother. The words hit Anya with the force of a physical blow. Kira had always been a maternal figure, a guiding star. But her affection had been warped, poisoned by vengeance. You were never that to me, Anya whispered, her voice trembling. A mother wouldn't demand her child become a weapon. Tears streamed down Kira's face. I did it for you. To shield you from the Alphas, to secure a life untouched by their tyranny. You gifted me a life steeped in animosity, Anya retorted, her tone hardening. Where I had to conceal, to deceive, to kill. I reject it. She lowered her knife, stepping away. Leave, Kira. Rejoin the Shadow Wolves. But do not ever approach Rhys or his pack. Kira fixed her with a look of raw pain and fury. You will regret this, Anya. You'll come to understand. They'll betray you, just as they betrayed us all. Anya offered no response. She watched as Kira turned and vanished into the woods, her silhouette devoured by the shadows. Anya stood alone in the clearing. The only sounds the whisper of leaves and the distant song of a bird. She examined her hands, stained crimson, and felt a crushing wave of exhaustion engulf her. She had severed ties with her past, but the true battle was just beginning. The Ironwood clan remained, lurking, plotting, and she knew, with bone-deep certainty, they would not relinquish her so easily. Moments later, Rhys found her, drawn by the echoing vestiges of combat and her raw distress. He saw her face, the blood marring her clothing, and understood. He offered no words, asked no questions. He simply enfolded her in his arms, holding her tightly. It's done, she whispered against his chest, the words a fragile offering. He held her tighter still. Not quite, he murmured, his voice firm. But we will meet it as one. Anya leaned into him, drawing fortitude from his presence. She had dismantled her own convictions, escaped the chains of her history. Now, she had to fight for her future, a future she had never conceived, one where she could finally taste liberation, a future, impossibly, where she could be cherished. A new dawn, the air, thick with resin and the acrid tang of burnt wood, formed a somber shroud over the violated clearing. The east bled hues of amethyst and burnished gold, a defiant sunrise mocking the destruction below. Rhys's hand, a warm anchor against her spine, steadied Anya as she inhaled a ragged breath, the coppery bite of blood sharp in her nostrils. It was finished. For now. They're gone, Rhys rasped, his voice frayed at the edges. His gaze encompassed the ravaged, scene-churned earth, shattered trees, the lingering darkness where the Ironwood pack had met their end. They won't be forgotten. Anya's throat constricted in response. She noticed Ilara, the pack's healer, navigating the wounded, her face a mask of exhaustion, yet her movements remained deft and certain. Young Bram, barely out of boyhood, was helping to clear debris, his motions jittery with leftover adrenaline. The pack was bruised, but unbroken. They showed incredible courage, Anya whispered, her voice thin. They fought for you. Rhys squeezed her shoulder in acknowledgement. For us, Anya. For our convictions. He turned to face her, his eyes, usually alight with mirth, clouded with fatigue. Thank you. For everything. She returned his gaze, a tremor of uncertainty flickering within her. I almost shattered everything, Rhys. I came here with the intention of ending you. He framed her face, his thumbs gently stroking her jawline. But you didn't. You made a different choice, a braver one. You chose us. His words were like a soothing balm, a forgiveness she hadn't dared to imagine. Yet, the weight of her past clung to her, a persistent reminder of the deceptions she had lived. What explanation do we give them? She asked, gesturing towards the pack with a subtle nod. About my past? My true identity? Rhys's expression hardened into resolve. The truth. Or what they need to hear. You sought sanctuary. You've demonstrated your allegiance. That must be enough. Anya questioned whether it would suffice for everyone. Doubt would persist. Inquiries would be made. Yet, she placed her confidence in Rhys's judgment. He understood his pack, their limits and tolerances. Come, Rhys offered, taking her hand in his. Let us show them a new dawn has broken. Together, they approached the assembled pack, their faces a mosaic of relief, grief, and suspicion. Anya felt their scrutiny, a silent assessment. She squared her shoulders and met their eyes, determined to earn their acceptance. Rhys stepped forward, his presence commanding, his voice resonating with authority. Pack, he began. We have endured a painful loss, but we also displayed our resilience. We stood against those who sought our annihilation, and we triumphed. A murmur of acknowledgement swept through the crowd. The Ironwood clan will not overlook this setback, Rhys continued, his tone somber. We must maintain vigilance, but we refuse to be consumed by fear. We will rebuild, we will tend to our wounds, and we will cultivate a future where peace and empathy are not mere words, but a lived reality. He paused, surveying the faces before him. Anya, he announced, turning to her, arrived as an outsider, yet She has proven herself a true comrade, a formidable warrior, and a steadfast friend. She is one of us now, and she will remain one of us. Anya moved forward, her heart hammering against her ribs. She had never addressed a group in such a way, never revealed such vulnerability. "I know some among you may hold reservations about me," she began, her voice surprisingly steady. "I understand your hesitation. All I can ask for is your trust. I intend to earn it each day, through every action." She met Ilara's inscrutable gaze, Bram's hesitant nod, and the myriad emotions reflected in the faces around her. The path ahead would be arduous, but she was prepared to tread it. "Our strength lies in unity," she continued. "We can overcome any obstacle as long as we remain united." A wave of warmth permeated the pack, a collective exhalation of relief and growing acceptance. It wasn't absolute, not yet, but a promising beginning. Later, under the ascending sun, Anya and Rhys stood at the clearing's edge, watching the pack embark on the demanding task of reconstruction. "It will be a long road," Rhys sighed, his voice gentle, "but we will get there." Anya leaned into him, drawing solace from his nearness. "What about the Ironwood clan? Will they seek revenge?" "Why, undoubtedly," Rhys responded grimly. "But we will be ready. We will fortify our defenses, cultivate alliances, and demonstrate that Northwood is not a pack to be underestimated." He turned to her, his eyes blazing with fierce resolve. "And we will find a means to break this cycle of violence. We will demonstrate there is an alternative." Anya recognized that Rhys's idealism, while sometimes a vulnerability, was also his greatest asset. It was what had initially drawn her to him, that unwavering conviction in a better tomorrow. "What about Kira?" Anya ventured, the name leaving a bitter taste. Rhys's countenance darkened. "She has retreated, for now. But she will not relent. She will attempt to turn others against us, to sabotage everything we are striving to achieve. We will be prepared for her too," Anya stated, her voice firm. "I understand her tactics. I know her methods." She gazed at Rhys, her heart overflowing with affection and gratitude. He had given her a reprieve, a renewed purpose, a cause to fight for. She would not fail him. "Come," Rhys invited, taking her hand once more. "Let us return home." Their home was a modest cabin nestled deep within the woods, a refuge of peace and quiet. It was unpretentious, yet infused with warmth and joy. It was a place where Anya could finally be her authentic self, without disguise or apprehension. Inside, they shed their blood-stained garments and rinsed away the grime of battle. The water, warm and soothing, alleviated the aches and pains that plagued their bodies. As they lay in bed later that night, entwined in each other's arms, Anya experienced a profound sense of contentment, unlike anything she had known before. The past was behind her, the future uncertain, but in that moment, everything felt perfect. "I love you, Rhys," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. "I love you too, Anya," he responded, his voice equally tender. "More than words can express." They drifted to sleep in each other's embrace, dreaming of a new daybreak, a future where love and understanding would ultimately prevail over hatred and brutality. The journey ahead would be extensive and arduous, but they would confront it together, side by side, as one. The Alpha and his shadow wolf, guardians of Northwood and protectors of a precarious peace.